Hey, it's Daryl. What I'm going to do today is try and drive to Ohakune. My plan is to go skiing tomorrow, so I'm going to drive up, stay at a place overnight, and then ski tomorrow and maybe the next day if the weather's okay. So in this journey I'm going to be driving, I don't know, 300 kilometers. I'm going to have to make a couple of stops to recharge and be very careful about what I do, so I'll talk to you a bit more when I make my first recharge stop. Okay, so my plan was to drive to Mangaweka. I just plugged in at the fast charger. The idea was to top off my battery to 100%, but because of the battery being quite full, it was charging at such a low rate that it was going to cost me like $20 to buy a trivial amount of electricity, and it was going to take an hour, so that was going to be no use. I don't know if it was really an hour, but it just seemed to only increase by 1% in about 5, 6, 7 minutes, so that was pointless. So it's saying 169 kilometers. I only managed to get like 2% charge there, so that was no use. I need to go 138 kilometers and it's hilly, so I just don't think that's going to be a goer. So my new plan is to drive to Palmerston North and recharge in Palmerston North and then go across to Mangaweka. So I think that should work just fine. So I'll talk to you again when I'm in Palmerston North. I'm going to go and get a cup of coffee while the car charges because I decided that I had to go via Palmerston North because I didn't want to take the risk. It reckoned that I had 25 kilometers of range in my prediction, but it's quite hilly, so I just didn't think it would be accurate. So hence why I'm in Palmerston North. Took like only about 3 minutes to get a cup of coffee, so I've still got whatever 5 more minutes of charging or something. So it's been about 9 minutes that I've gone to get my coffee, and well, it's come up 20%, so we've got 10% more to go before we leave. And there we go, the system sends you a text message when it's charged, so that took 13 minutes and I'm up to 80%. Close that little thingy. 90 kilometers to the next charger, 141 kilometers, and I was on 80%, but I drove a kilometer or something, so it's gone down a little bit. Try a different camera angle. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if that's a good camera angle or not. Might work. So I'm at Sanson and I've got 120 k's of range and 65%, so 65% and 120 kilometers of range. And what else? The distance I have to go is 67 kilometers, so I've got almost 1% per kilometer. So it should be alright. And this was with the 80% charge from Palmerston North. So, and again, I just remind you, I'm in a 30 kilowatt leaf. Been suffering a little bit of range anxiety. I've got 9.4 kilometers to go, so this should be completely fine, except that it's really where I am at the moment. So it's being a bit freakish. And then the other thing is, you have to play nice with the other traffic as well, because like at the moment I'm being followed by a big truck and it goes slow up the hills, and I don't want to go slow up the hills, but I want to regen on the downhills, and the truck wants to go fast on the downhills, so it's kind of a weird game of cat and mouse. The orange like neon light came on, and we've just got a really steep hill just now, but it's only 4 kilometers to go, and the range says 20 kilometers and flashing, so I think I'm totally fine. Totally fine. I'm not at all having any range anxiety. I was at 8%, so that was 80% down to 8% from Palmerston North, and I had to drive the last hilly bits at kind of slowish speed. Just got the text message to say that my car had completed charging, so that's cool. Remember the close little thing. I think that it's come up with a estimate now as well, so there's no charging. What I like about this charging place is there's a sign which shows a car just like mine being recharged, which I think is fun.
Please drive to highlighted route.
So it's 50 kilometers to Waiouru, so should be plenty of range there, so we'll see what it's like when I get there. One of the things with coming out of Mangaweka is the first thing that you have is a giant hill when you're heading north, so it started at about 300 meters of altitude, and I wonder what it will be at the top, but I kind of think you gain like easily 100 meters of altitude in just a couple of kilometers, so it's quite a draw. I'm already down 2% and I've only gone like 1 kilometer. There we go. So again, I'm at 50% of the battery capacity and got 70 odd Ks, 69 Ks. So about half the battery is going to take you 120 kilometers in total. So you can see that when you're driving in the hills and trying to maintain something like a highway speed, even though I would be driving 80 kilometers per hour, which is this much, you can see that you're not going to get as much range as what you would normally expect. Also, I've been fast charging, so the battery heat's coming up, and I need one more fast charge as well. What I've noticed is that doing a couple of fast charges in a row brings up the battery heat, and considering it's 5 degrees Celsius outside, the battery temperature comes up. So that's one of these things that's a bit weird. I wonder if I drive the car in the summer, if I try to drive from Wellington to Auckland, say to go for a holiday or go away for a weekend or something, whatever it is that people drive from Wellington to Auckland for, will rapidly fast charging, then fast charging, then fast charging mean that the battery gets really, really hot and it actually limits your ability to travel anywhere? So not really sure about that. So far today I've done about 230 kilometers and I've done 2 fast charges. I've done 8% up to 80% and about 50%, maybe it was 45% up to 80% as well. And I'm going to do another fast charge in 10 kilometers time, which will probably look like about 40% up to 80%. I might go to 90% because the place where I'm going to doesn't have any charges, so I'll need my running around power, and also because I'm intending to drive up the mountain if the road's open and not covered in snow. I want some range for that, and I'm gonna ask to see if I can just use a normal power outlet to recharge my car, but it's not necessarily going to happen. So here's another place to charge your car, by the cannon, and by the tank, and by the museum. Looks like the museum's being renovated. here's the charger here. So I'm going to do another video of plugging in the car. So I'm on 37% and 3 cents of power. I'm going to have a look and see if the cafe at the museum is open. But if it's not and you're here, if you go around down behind me, if you see the building with the yellow stripe in the background, there's a petrol station, and opposite there there's another petrol station, and in that area there's a couple of cafes and a bakery, and behind me as well on the other side of the road, where is it? Over there. Over there there's a cafe called Angkor Wat, which apparently has really good pies if you're here on a freezing day like today where it's 5 degrees. It's been super rainy because there's a bit of a flood here on the footpath, and effectively there's a desert just 10 kilometres away, so it's pretty wet for this location. Sophie with a cannon. I just started the charger again because I wanted to go a little bit above 80% because, you know, I'm not certain whether I'll be able to recharge my car while I'm in Ohakune. So because this is the only charger near Ohakune, I would have to come back here to recharge my car if I can't charge it anywhere in Ohakune, so that would be a pain in the neck. I'm going to see if I can get to 90% or something. Yeah, so the place I'm going to is 29 kilometres away from here, and that means that I'll need 60 kilometres just to make the round trip to where I'm staying, and say I miraculously have 150 kilometres of actual range, they'll only give me 100 kilometres of mucking around distance, and I know that from where I'm staying to where the shops are is about 5 k's each way, so I might have to go there and back a couple of times to go for some food or, you know, get something to eat or whatever. And also going up the hill to the ski field, that's like 15 k's, but it's up an amazing amount of hill, so if I can't plug in where I'm staying, it might be a bit of a pain because I'll have to come back here to recharge. I'll have to come back here anyway, whether I go to Taupo or just go back home, because this is on the state highway where the intersection is with the turn off to Ohakune in any case. There's another charger in Turoa, and just for a change of scenery, I might be able to drive all the way around the mountain if I can charge where I'm staying, but otherwise I'll definitely have to come back to Waiouru to recharge. Okay everyone, so what happened is the charger disconnected me at 95%, so it cost me an extra $3.30 or something to go from 80% to 95%. But with 95% I'm pretty confident that I can drive to where I'm staying and have some muck around distance. For 95% it thinks I'm going to get 150 kilometres, which is probably realistic at the highway driving speeds and driving in the cold and all that. See the battery heat gauge has come up moderately high. I think it's the highest I've ever seen it. Got 185 k's on the clock, which is more than I had when I left the charger, although I've got less percent now. So I'm just near the mountain, which you can't see from here. I just stayed at this really awesome house. It's an awesome place to stay. It's very affordable. The mountain's just behind these apartments, so might get a view from somewhere else. There you go. It's a national park, so you're not allowed to take your dog in the national park. I'm at the bottom of the hill. I've got 83% and 180k range, and it's 270.6 kilometers on the clock. So I'm going to drive up the steep hill. I think that the ski field is at 1,600 meters, and I'm currently at 608 meters. So heading into the green forest park there. Okay, so first drive up the mountain, here we go. about halfway up the mountain now, and battery's on 70%, so I think I've used 12% to go 10 kilometers. And we're at the tippy top car park. Get to go off-roading. There we go. So that was a success. I burned 29% to get up the hill, drove 17 kilometers. So that's quite shocking. It's like 2% per kilometer, something like that. But again, I'm at 1,620 meters, so it's a big mountain climb. There we go. I'm heading up the mountain on the chairlift. See everyone else skiing. It's a bit icy and crunchy. Got here in this Nissan LEAF. Worked out all right so far. There we go. So there's the mountain, and there's the ski field. This is only a small part of it. This is pretty huge, the ski field. There's a lot more ski field down there as well. There's not very many people here, as you can tell. Most of the chairs have nobody on them, and everyone's going down these valleys. It's just another really nice day up on the mountain. I might head right up the tippy top of the mountain, or do another run down here, and then head up to the very highest chairlift. Looks totally amazing down there today. Look at that. So the town is past the forest, past the big puffy grey cloud. So there we go, I've driven right to the top of the hill. So here's Turoa ski field. That's where you rent your skis and get your ski passes. And down here is where the learner area is. And there you go. So you can jump in your electric car, drive from Wellington, go skiing for a day or two, and then drive home, no problems. Look how amazing the mountain is there. I'm right at the top of the mountain, and it's 1,640 meters, so 1,640 meters altitude. And so I'm going to drop down a kilometer down to about 600 meters. And so I'm going to see if we get some epic regen. So I'm starting with 53% and 66 kilometers. So I'm at the top of the hill, and I've got 53% and 66 kilometers range. I used 28% of the battery to climb up 1 kilometer of altitude, and I think it was 17 or 18 kilometers of distance traveled. So here we are, 53% and 65 k's remaining. Alright, so I had a really great day skiing, so I'm just going back down to stay down in Ohakune. You can see Mount Ruapehu here, and what else? Turoa ski field, and everyone's driving down. Other people using fuel, even though they're going downhill. I guess they won't be using much fuel going downhill, but they use a lot going uphill. So there's the volcano. I went up to the very highest chairlift, which is, you can see the top building right in the center of the image there. So I'm at the bottom of the mountain now and got 62% and 134 kilometers. So that's a bit of a recovery in range. I'll do the calculation on that shortly. I think we were at 52 at the top, so got 10% back. So used 28% going uphill and got 10% back coming downhill. That van's blowing so much smoke. It's awesome with all the snowmakers running today. So I didn't do this before. So when I got to the top of the mountain I had 73%. So I started with 99% basically at the bottom of the hill. Probably 98% to be honest. And it says 84 Ks. But I'll probably regen 10% and have about 80, I'm going to say 82%, 83% at the bottom. And it's frosty because look, it's covered in ice out there. Pretty sunny here, but got to 78% battery and 169 kilometers to drive, which is totally lies. I think that 80% of the battery would only normally take me 140 kilometers, so probably could reasonably do. And I'm going to be driving high speed, so 120 kilometers probably more likely true. So I'm going to see how far it is to Turoa and probably recharge at Waiouru. So the GPS thinks I can go to Turoa via National Parkway, but I kind of really want to go via fast chargers. There's charger at Turoa, but there's double charger at Waiouru, so I think charging at Waiouru makes more sense to me. It's only about 9 minutes difference in driving time. It's like 3 kilometers. It's such a short difference in driving time. I think I should go via where there's more chargers. And we're at Waiouru with 52% and 84 Ks on the thing, and that probably wouldn't have been enough to get somewhere, wherever it is that I was supposed to be going. There we go, I got the pie. Well, pie in charge. Wow, it's so sunny. So I'm at the National Army Museum in Waiouru. I'm charged to 86% at the moment, and I have enough range to drive to Taupo, I would expect. Wouldn't have much problem getting 112 kilometers. I think that'll be fine. If I'm not fine, there's a fast charger in Turoa on the way, so it's going to be great. It's 22 minutes to fill up about 45%. On the desert road, in the desert, on the desert road, and behind us is Mount Ruapehu in the clouds. some expensive power. The lake's looking really great today, so I'm heading over the other side over there. Amazing. So I'm sort of halfway between Turangi and Taupo, and just stopped to have a look at the lake. The island and the lake is just over there. Looks really awesome today. And my awesome car. Oh, see shadow of iPad on car. And the car. Here we go. Oh, very sunny with the light coming off the lake. I'm in Taupo and I'm just charging my car over by the fire station behind me there. And you can see up on the mountain is where I went skiing, right across the other side of the lake. Just took a 10-minute walk along the waterfront and took photos of the volcano. I wish I'd bought my camera with a longer range zoom. %. Oh, that was pretty good. So, almost done. There you go, a Tesla turned up and it's charging using the Chademo adapter. I'm just super excited because we just charged up and I was about to back out of the charging bay, and I noticed that the mileage on my car is 11111. So this is a Kia Soul EV. I actually think this car is really good. This is totally another great car to buy instead of a Leaf. There we go. There's a giant vase with steam coming out of it over there on the horizon. Let's have a closer look. Yeah, see? Here's some of our geothermal forests. Ended up just taking a walk through each street here in Rotorua. So it's like just a little street of cafes and restaurants, and it's not very far from the lake. It's just across the park behind me. Here's a New Zealand thing. So in Rotorua here, there's a lot of volcanic gas, and so in this police car, the whole logo and everything is all corroded away. And the ugly plastic ones. I'm at the Taupo fast charger recharging my car. I think I got here with about 50%. I've been plugged in for 10 minutes or so. So probably I'll go in about another 10 minutes. I want to try and get a heap of charge so that I can work out if I can just drive straight through to Waiouru. So it's possible that I might be able to make the trip with just 2 stops. So just Waiouru and then to Mangaweka. Yeah, so there's a double charger in Waiouru, but Mangaweka to where I live is quite a long distance, but it's basically straight downhill all the way and flat. And also my mum and my brother live halfway in between, so if I do kind of look like I'm getting too short, I'll get that. Stop by my mum's place for dinner or something and recharge the car for an hour, and that will get me to the fast charger 20 k's from my house, something like that. I just recharged at Mangaweka fast charger and it says 220 kilometers. It's probably because coming into Mangaweka there's a humongous downhill drive if you're coming from Waiouru. Yeah, so it's got an unreasonable projection. So I charged to completely full and it just stopped at 95%. And I think that the ChargeNet ones do that because it starts just getting very expensive per minute, not really gaining much range. Another fun thing about Mangaweka is just beside the fast charger is this DC3. On the other side there's a cafe. I'm in Mangaweka now and I'm going to try and drive directly home. There's one more fast charger between where I am and my house, but it's only about 22 kilometers from my house. So if I do end up getting very nearly at the end of charge, I'll be able to stop. But if it's looking a bit marginal about halfway through the drive, I'll have to go via Palmerston North or something, so we'll just see what happens. So I'm at Bulls. There's a BP petrol station in the rain and some takeaway places and no car charges, but I've got 63% and 145 kilometers left to run, which is quite miraculous. And so I think I can drive all the way home, which is really awesome because what have I got if I bring up my thing? The next fast charger is 77 kilometers away and I only live 20 kilometers further away than that. So if worst comes to worst, I can still charge at the next fast charger a little bit before I go home. Press the record button, turn off the window wiper. Looks like I have enough range to get home, so I think I have enough range to get home, yay! I've decided to stop at my mum's house. I'm going to recharge, but I am about 25 kilometers from Otaki, and so I will be able to get to the fast charger. If I just drive to the fast charger, I'll still have 20 kilometers spare, and then I would be able to recharge and just go home. But I'm just going to stop in and have dinner with my mum right now, so I thought that would be nice. And I'm going to plug my car in for an hour or two as I have dinner, and then I'll probably have enough range to get home. But if not, I can still recharge in Otaki like I planned to. So that looks pretty good. And it's turned into a 1,000 kilometer ski trip. You can see the bottom I've got there at 1032.5 kilometers. So more than 1,000 kilometers on this trip because we ended up going to Rotorua, which was fun. So I thought I'd do some post hoc comments about my trip. So one thing that I did do is I did charge at a few places where I didn't actually need to, and that's because I haven't done this trip before. So I didn't really know what kind of range that I would get. So in a couple of cases I stopped at Waiouru, I stopped at Turoa. I didn't think I actually needed to stop at Turoa any times at all. So sometimes, you know, you just stop because you're not really sure. So I definitely stopped and bought lunch, I think, or some snacks or something, going in both directions at Turoa. Turing is just one of those big stops which has got a supermarket and a petrol station and all the facilities. So, that's a good place to stop and get a cup of coffee. If you're going to stop anyway, you may as well plug in the car, because that means that when you get to the next location, because it's a few percent more battery charge, so that it'll save you time later. So one approach is to use even fast chargers as convenience chargers. If you know you're taking a long journey, then every time you stop, you may as well plug in the car and recharge it. On the other hand, I think the car actually charges much faster when the battery is very flat. So topping up the battery at fast charger is not a good idea, because it actually just costs you more money than if you charge it later. So, that's interesting. In this trip, I stayed at my brother's house a couple of nights, and I could have recharged at his house, but because the Taupo fast charger was free, and I was making a video, and my video was primarily about just using the car and how to use it, I didn't charge at my brother's house. I used a fast charger. Next time I take this trip, the chances are that they'll turn on pricing for that fast charger, in which case I would just recharge overnight at my brother's house, because that costs far less. It's about 17 cents per kilowatt hour charging on night rates, as opposed to 25 cents per kilowatt hour on a fast charger, perhaps 40 cents per kilowatt hour, depending on what scheme. I don't know what the pricing scheme is going to be. So far the fast chargers I've used are 25 cents per kilowatt and 25 cents per minute, or 40 cents per kilowatt. So the one I used at Rotorua was 40 cents per kilowatt. And so what I tended to do was stay plugged in much longer than I otherwise would have, because you're just paying for the power, and quite often it's just convenient to have the battery quite full, especially if you're taking journeys you haven't had before and you don't know how much power you're going to use for that journey. So I kind of think that I made a spreadsheet in this case, so I might print that out and keep it in the car, so next time I make the journey I'll know how much charge to put in to make each segment. So another thing I worked out is that in my car I can't drive from my house to Mangaweka, but I can drive from Mangaweka to my house. That's because it's sort of uphill towards Mangaweka, and so I'll just use more battery too fast to do that journey. But on the other way, I'm going downhill, so it actually preserves the battery considerably all the way until you get to Bulls. I only used like 30% of the battery to do that part of the journey, because it was mostly downhill, and then the other 60% of the battery I had left would have been enough to get me home, or at least to the Otaki fast charger. But around the other way, because my car is I tried charging at Otaki on the way up, but because the battery was too full, it wouldn't charge very quickly. It was very expensive to charge that way. Perhaps if they had a different pricing scheme or a slow charger somewhere, that would be a better idea. But until they put a fast charger at Sanson or at Bulls, then I'll have to go north, going via Palmerston North. Even though it's not that much, it only made like a 20-minute difference to the drive going north, and I stop a lot when I'm driving anyway. I just can't sit in the car for long periods of time. Any car tends to kind of just get uncomfortable. I just need a break, and I like to stop and get a coffee and have a walk around, that kind of thing. So great car if that's your travelling style. However, if you're the kind of person who gets in the car, drives non-stop for 5 hours, electric car's probably not really for you at this stage. If you hit a 24 kilowatt Nissan LEAF, because remember my car is 30 kilowatt, which is the unusually large battery for a Nissan LEAF. A normal 24 kilowatt Nissan LEAF You can do this whole journey that I did, but you would have to be very careful driving from Palmerston North to Mangaweka. You would have to, you wouldn't want a headwind, that might be a bit of a pain, and you would have to charge to 100% in Palmerston North. So currently I wouldn't really recommend driving a normal Nissan LEAF from Palmerston North to Mangaweka. I don't think you would be guaranteed of getting there every time, because I left on 80% from Palmerston North and I got to Mangaweka on 8%, and I had to slow down because I was a little bit concerned. So probably 8% should still get you a reasonable distance, but let me try and think that out. 10% would be 3 kilowatts, so 8% less. So if we say 3 kilowatts and then go 6, it's 18 kilometers. So you're actually looking at around 16 kilometers of range left, which is really getting low. So definitely, if you're driving from Palmerston North to Mangaweka, you need to do a max charge at Palmerston North, and then drive carefully. I went via the Sanson Way, which is flat. I think you can drive via Fielding, which will take you through the big dip, because you've got to drive effectively through down into the Mangaweka, not the Mangaweka, what is that river called? Rohini River, I think. You have to drive down into the Rohini River and then back out. Feel like I'm saying the wrong word there. Bit of geography tech. Anyway, so that's a tricky drive in a Nissan LEAF. I think that if you had any other BMW i3 or a Kia Soul or a Renault Zoe, well, Renault Zoe's got a different problem because it uses three-phase charging, and there's no three-phase charging available at most fast charge locations, so don't take the Renault Zoe. Well, you can, but you have to charge somewhere else. I don't know where you would charge that. EV Central in Taupo has a slow charger, so you can charge there if you like as well, so that's kind of handy. Again, as more people get electric cars, there should be more chargers become available. For example, they're building a double up charger, so ChargeNet fast charger being built on the Taupo bypass road. So that will mean that Taupo will have 3 fast chargers, and I'm going to guess that the Taupo City fast charger will have the 40 cents per unit charge, and the other ones will be the 25 cents per unit charge. Mostly for driving style, I wasn't trying to drive conservatively slowly, although some places I just did drive conservatively slowly because I was a little bit worried about the range. And this is crazy because a 24 kilowatt LEAF should easily get between these places that I drove. Not in all cases though. So yeah, it makes it a hard recommended 24 kilowatt LEAF. I think that if you live places where you live halfway between 2 fast chargers, and so the fast charge, the one that's either side of your house are only going to be about 40 kilometers away, then a 24 kilowatt Nissan LEAF is probably really awesome, because you can get sufficiently far away and use the fast charger if you need it, and not use it if you don't need it. But on the other hand, just for electric cars in general, definitely 30 kilowatts is a marginally short distance, I think. So my overall feeling for this is that the totally practical electric cars that can replace your everyday car would be the 40 kilowatt cars and bigger. So I think my longest driving segment was about 120 kilometers, and I've driven 120 kilometers 1 or 2 times before, and it's fine if you're going past a lot of chargers and you can plug in at any stage. But if you're driving 124 kilometers in the countryside and there's not really any charging infrastructure available to you, then my car probably has a real highway range of around 160 kilometers, but getting down to your last 35 kilometers or something like that, it starts to get a a little bit uncomfortable because you're not really certain whether you're going to make it to the next charging stop. Another thing to do when you take a long drive is go on the app and make sure that the fast chargers along your journey are online and actually working. The other day I was just driving up to Palmerston North, and I drove past the Otaki fast charger and it had a fault, and there was a guy there who was just sitting at the charger and he couldn't recharge his car, and so he had to call for service. And then somebody said that maybe that charging problem didn't get resolved that day. So I don't know what you would do in that case. You're either going to get your car towed to another city. That's going to be really expensive. In my car insurance, the breakdown service would cover that. And if you have those sorts of extra things in your insurance, it's quite possible that insurance might even cover a night in a motel if you're in a location that you just couldn't get towed from. So that's an interesting thing. On the other hand, once there are sufficient large numbers of chargers that each town or village has a couple of fast chargers, then you're going to have no problem. If you can't recharge at one end of town, just drive your car to the other side of the town, a couple of kilometres away, there'll be another fast charger. So already that's the case in Auckland. There's so many chargers all over the place that unless you've just let your battery get down to super low level, you're going to have a problem getting to another charger. But if you're recharging your car, when you've still got 30% left, then you've got 30 kilometres to drive to another charger. That's not going to be a problem. Some other locations. If Levin had a fast charger, for example, that would be real handy, because I think that driving from Levin to Mangaweka might be possible, or Foxton to Mangaweka, that would be possible for me and my car. Different ranges for different people. I think that anywhere driving that's really hilly is just more tricky, because I think when I drove over to Masterton for a day trip, and I don't know how much range that was, something like 250 kilometres, and I recharged the car 2 times, once in Masterton and again on the way back in Upper Hutt, because going over big mountains just uses a lot of energy. It's good that you get back some of the energy going downhill on the other side. So if you can get to the crest of a mountain, you're alright to get down the other side. You can regen enough power to get to a charger on the other side. That's good. I use 28% of my battery. So in a normal Nissan LEAF, you would use, say, 40% of your battery to drive from Ohakune up to the ski field. That's a kilometre of vertical altitude. So large amounts of vertical altitude use a lot of power. Going from sea level, like you would be at near Levin or Foxton or Bulls, up to the crest of the desert road, you're looking at more than a kilometre. I think it's about a kilometre 60 metres, something like that. So you just use a lot of energy to get to the high country. So this is going to be the case in the South Island. You're going to be going over these mountain passes as well. So you actually need considerably larger battery for getting up hills, but again, you regen a bit of power on the way down. If you can get over a hill, you're fine. I think they're totally practical. I think for a completely mainstream electric car in New Zealand, 40 kilowatt cars would be sufficient for almost everybody. So for example, if I had a 40 kilowatt car, I could drive from my house to Mangaweka. So my take on it is that it takes about 10 kilowatts to climb 1 kilometre of altitude. So if you're driving around in big hills, then that's tricky. So there's a couple of places in New Zealand which have hills around 1 kilometre of altitude. I think think there's say going between Gisborne and Whakatane, that's about nearing a kilometre, and the road between, I'm going to say, Matamata across to Tauranga, it gets pretty high as well. And in Thames, going from Thames over to the other side of the Coromandel Peninsula, that's I think 700-800 metres, something like that. Lindis Pass is pretty high, so quite a lot of the South Island mountain passes are around that. So effectively you need whatever you need to cover the normal distance plus an additional 10 kilowatts to lift the weight of the car over the hill. That is tricky. Yeah, I found that. See, Waiouru's at about 600 meters, so you go from Waiouru to the top of the hill. That's going from 600 up to 10.06, and then you go downhill the other side back to Turangi, which is pretty close to lake level, which is about 300 meters. So you actually going from Waiouru to Turangi uses less power than going to Turangi to Waiouru because you're gaining altitude. Then once you're past Waiouru, you start going downhill again, either towards Ohakune or downhill towards no, Ohakune's not too much lower downhill. Yeah, so from Waiouru you go downhill to Mangaweka, but the area around Mangaweka is really hilly with some really huge climbs. I mean, some of those have big steep hill climbs that go for 2 or 3 kilometers at a time. So those 1, 2 or 3 kilometers at a time, they're big hill climbs. So that just uses a lot of power.